In today's episode, we're gonna be making a pumpkin coffee cake that is so moist. It's topped with a brown sugar cinnamon streusel that's gonna knock it out of the park. I promise it's gonna be a good one, so let's get into it. Hello, mi gente, and welcome back to Nata Knows Best. I'm your host, Nata, and today we're gonna be making a pumpkin flavored coffee cake. I decided to replicate the iconic flavors of a coffee cake and take them to another level. I'm mixing them with some pumpkin puree, and then of course we're adding those warm pumpkin spices. I'm talking ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice. All of that is gonna come together in this super moist cake. And then of course, that special streusel crumb topping we're adding. Let's get into it. So right here, I have my dry ingredients and I have some all-purpose flour. And to this, I'm going to add my pumpkin spice. I'm going hefty with the amount of pumpkin spice here. Next, I'm gonna add my baking soda along with some baking powder and some salt. Of course, we're gonna whisk all these dry ingredients together to make sure there are no lumps. After whisking our dry ingredients, I'm gonna move these aside and start on our wet ingredients. The thing I love about this recipe is that there is no hand mixer, there is no stand mixer. You literally can just continue using your whisk. So in this bowl, I'm going to be adding some brown sugar. As a reminder, if you guys are looking for the ingredients and measurements for this, I will be adding all of that in the description box below. I will also be linking this recipe on my website. If you guys are new here, my website is nataknowsbest.com. Pretty simple. Go ahead and check that out. So in addition to the brown sugar, I'm also going to add some canola oil or some vegetable oil. This recipe is different than most cakes. It does not have melted butter. I feel like adding oil gives it a bit more richness and adds to the moisture level that I've been referring to, because when I tell you that this cake is moist, trust me, it's moist. So whisk these two ingredients together. Now go ahead and add that pumpkin puree. Pumpkin puree also has a lot of moisture in it, so again, it's just gonna increase how soft this cake is gonna be. All right, so now to our pumpkin mixture, I'm going to add some sour cream. Now, if you're wondering why sour cream, it's pretty much another substitute for any type of dairy that you want to add to this recipe, but I like using the sour cream because it's gonna give this cake a bit of tanginess, which is gonna cut out some of the sweetness, not all of it, but it's still just gonna elevate the flavors to this. I love how easy this cake is gonna be, and just for the amount of effort you're putting into this cake, you're really gonna get a bang for your buck as far as flavors. So you gotta love that. All right, so to this mixture, I'm gonna finish it off with our eggs. Go ahead and crack those in. Of course, make sure you don't get any shells. And last but not least, I'm gonna finish off this wet batter with some vanilla extract. You can measure this or you can't. I'm one of those bakers that decides not to or just kind of eyeball it. So I'm just going to mix that in real quick. And that pretty much finishes our wet batter. So again, because this is one of those recipes where you don't have to use any mixers, you can literally just use a whisk, I'm going to slowly incorporate this wet batter into our dry ingredients. Obviously in small sections so you don't overmix, but pretty easy. I guess I spoke a little too soon. I definitely am gonna need to switch over from a whisk to some type of spatula because this is getting thick. So I'm gonna transfer over to a spatula and finish this off. This is literally so velvety right now. And of course I sneaked in my finger just a little bit to give it a taste test. And I'm trying to tell you guys, it is gonna be a banger. This is gonna be so good. Now that we gave it a good mix, this is the consistency that we're looking for. It's slightly thick, but not too thick. And it's definitely velvety. So here I have an 8x8 baking dish. This recipe is specifically for an 8x8 baking dish. So if you plan on making a 9x13, definitely double this one. And I'm just going to spray some Pam. This is the baking Pam that's butter with flour. And now I'm just going to smooth out our batter. So I just finished smoothing out our cake, and I've had my oven preheating to 350 degrees, and I'm just going to bake this cake for roughly 35 to 45 minutes. All right, so now that our cake is actually baking, let's get started on the streusel topping that's gonna go on top. So if you're wondering why it's gonna go on top later, it's because we wanna partially cook the interior of the cake first. So in a shallow bowl, I have some brown sugar, and I'm going to add equal parts flour. And of course, because this is a pumpkin coffee cake, we have to add some extra pumpkin flavor in here. So I'm going to be adding some pumpkin spice and a little extra of my favorite cinnamon. This is actually Saigon cinnamon. This is by far the strongest, like pungent, super bold cinnamon flavor. So I love using this cinnamon instead of the traditional one. So I added a little bit extra cinnamon on top of the pumpkin spice. And then we're gonna finish it off with a pinch of salt, kind of just to offset some of that sweetness. And then I'm gonna add our cold cube butter to our topping. This is extra cold because I'm gonna be using my hands to make this streusel. So you just wanna crumble everything together. If you don't wanna use your hands, you can definitely use a food processor. I like using my hands because I feel like I can gauge the texture a little more. So it's the perfect amount of crumble to sugar to flour. So I've been mixing for a bit, and I've achieved that perfect texture that I was talking about. So this is what I mean by wet sand. Now that we got our crumble finished, of course, you're just gonna top it over the cake. Make sure you spread it out first. Once again, you're going to add your cake back in the oven to finish cooking. All right, so I just took this bad boy out, and I'm gonna allow it to rest a little bit, but I'm letting you know right now, it smells incredible. So while we have it cooling, what I'm gonna do is create a little glaze to go on top of it. And I'm thinking pumpkin and like cinnamon and brown sugar go great with maple syrup. So we're gonna be actually making a maple glaze to put on top of this. So I have some powdered sugar in here along with some maple syrup, and I'm gonna start slowly incorporating it until we kind of get a drizzle consistency. So we're kind of getting there. I think we might need a little bit more liquid. All right, so I added a bit more maple syrup, but I also added some water to thin it out. Kind of looking for this. Yes, we're looking for that. So I'm just gonna go straight into drizzling this mixture. Look at that. Oh, wow. All right, mi gente, all that is left is for me to cut myself a slice and give it a little taste test. All right, so here I have that slice that I just cut myself. Look how incredible this looks. I also added that extra drizzle, and I'm gonna go right in. That's good. That is really good. I'm gonna continue going because I can't stop myself. Nothing else has to be said other than it's perfect. It's nice and moist. It has a beautiful pumpkin flavor. And because it's a coffee cake, it's gonna work so well with coffee. If you guys liked this recipe, go ahead and leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Don't forget to also like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Stay tuned for next week for another delicious recipe. Remember, you guys, I will be linking this recipe down below. It'll be on my website, which is notthatknowsbest.com. I will also be adding this recipe to my YouTube playlist that's called Not That Knows Desserts. This is a playlist that has several fall recipes. I'm talking pumpkin bread. We also have some pumpkin brownies that are delicious. They have some cheesecake swirls in them. We also have a ton other recipes that are perfect for the holiday season, which of course is coming up. So go ahead and check that playlist out. And as always, mi gente, thank you so much for watching. Nata Knows Best.